My boss sabotaged my career. Years later, I bought his company. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. If you've ever felt the floor drop out from under your life, you know the exact sound your heart makes when trust shatters. Mine was a soft, echoing thud the day my boss, my mentor, the man I once admired, destroyed everything I'd built. He did it with a smile. One minute I was on track for a promotion. The next I was standing in a glass-walled conference room as Mark slid a stack of papers across the table. There have been some concerns about your performance, he said. The words cut deeper than any knife. I'd given 5 years to this company. Late nights, lost weekends, birthdays spent in the glow of spreadsheets. Mark knew my work ethic, knew my loyalty. But as he looked at me, eyes cold, mouth set, I realized he knew something else: how to make people disappear. Rumors started fast. Someone claimed I'd mishandled a client account. Others whispered about missing invoices, numbers not adding up. My so-called friends at the office avoided my gaze, shuffling past my desk with awkward silences. I begged for answers, but the HR manager just shook her head, repeating, "It's out of my hands." Mark never looked back. Within a week, I was out, escorted by security, humiliated and furious. My savings dwindled, job applications went unanswered. Every interview was the same: polite interest that faded the second they checked my references. My reputation was ruined. I spent months on the couch, rage simmering beneath the depression. I replayed that last meeting 100 times, searching for a sign, a way I could have stopped the avalanche. But Mark had been planning this. He wanted me gone. I swore I'd make him regret it. I'd lost everything, but I wasn't done. Years passed. I rebuilt, brick by brutal brick. And today, I stand in the company lobby, not as an employee, but as the new owner. Mark doesn't know I'm here yet. But when he walks in, I'll be sitting at his desk. Let's see how he likes losing everything. The security guard at the front desk eyed me warily, not recognizing me at first. I didn't blame him. Years and a little hard-won confidence had changed me. Gone was the nervous junior analyst in ill-fitting suits. Now, I wore a tailored jacket, every detail intentional. I straightened my spine as the elevator door slid open, my heart pounding like it had that terrible day. Only this time, it was adrenaline, not dread, in my veins. The halls looked almost the same. The bland art, the smell of burnt coffee, the clipped footsteps of people who still believed this place could be a future. A few old faces passed me, eyes flicking with curiosity, not quite able to place me. Not yet. Mark's office was at the top. I paused outside the frosted glass, listening. His voice floated through, confident, charming, the tone of a man who believed he could never lose. That same voice that once built me up, then tore me down. I pushed open the door without knocking. The conversation inside froze. Mark turned, surprise flickering across his face before he masked it with a smirk. "Can I help you?" I held his gaze, then took his seat at the desk, my desk now, and slid a folder across to him. "You should read this," I said, voice steady. "You'll want to see who signed your paychecks now." For the first time, I saw fear crack his facade. He flipped through the documents, hands trembling ever so slightly. Around us, the staff gathered, words spreading like wildfire. I could feel their stares, the tension mounting. Mark tried to recover, forcing a smile. "So, what? Are you here for revenge?" I leaned forward, the weight of all those lost years burning in my chest. "No, Mark. I'm here for the truth. And it starts today." As murmurs rose behind me, I realized this was just the beginning. The real power was finally in my hands. But Mark's eyes, calculating, bitter, told me he wasn't done fighting. That first day, I stayed long after most employees went home, soaking in every corner of the office that once felt hostile and haunted. I moved through the empty halls, running my fingers over the etched glass walls, remembering how small and powerless I'd felt when Mark orchestrated my fall. But now, as I settled into my new office, his old office, there was no comfort, only purpose. The staff was uneasy, the tension thick. Some welcomed me with cautious smiles. Others whispered in the break room, unsure if I was here to burn it all down or save them. Mark kept his distance, but his presence lingered. An email here, a snide remark in a meeting there. He wasn't just going to accept defeat. I could see it in the way he squared his shoulders, the icy politeness masking his rage. I caught him quietly gathering allies, schmoozing the old guard, spinning his version of my story. A week in, I called my first all-hands meeting. I stood before the company, some faces familiar, others new. Some of you know who I am. I began, voice tight with emotion I tried to hide. Some of you think you do. But what matters is this. The old way of doing things ends now. I revealed the truth. Mark's sabotage, the false accusations, the way I'd been forced out. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. Mark tried to shout me down, but I had the evidence. Emails, timelines, names of those who'd colluded. I watched as old loyalties fractured, as people who'd turned their backs on me struggled with their guilt. I'm not here for revenge. I finished, locking eyes with Mark. I'm here to build something better. But that means honesty. If you can't accept that, you're free to leave. The room was silent. Mark glared, humiliated but not broken. Later, I found a note on my desk. This isn't over. You never should have come back. I smiled to myself, resolve stealing. Let him come. Overnight, the atmosphere in the office curdled. Mark's supporters began circling like sharks, their whispers just loud enough to reach my door. A few key staffers resigned without warning. Projects stalled. Files disappeared from shared drives. The old paranoia crept back in, but I refused to show fear. It was Mark, of course it was. Subtle at first, misdirected emails, accidental leaks to clients, cryptic complaints about my leadership. He couldn't reclaim the company, but he could poison it. My calendar filled with tense meetings and difficult conversations. Some people wanted me to fail. Others just wanted things to go back to how they were, no matter how toxic that had been. One afternoon, my new operations manager, Priya, knocked quietly. You should see this. She slid her laptop across the desk, a chain of emails, traced back to Mark, orchestrating a false HR complaint against me. It was blatant retaliation, a playbook I knew all too well. I called Mark to my office. He sauntered in, feigning innocence. Is there a problem? I didn't flinch. You're done, Mark. You've crossed every line. He sneered. Prove it. You think anyone here really believes you? They remember what you were, not what you've become. I met his stare, steady. Then let's show them the truth. Together. I called an emergency board meeting, evidence in hand. As Mark sat across from me, I revealed every scheme, every lie, every planted rumor. The board listened, jaws clenched. By the end, Mark's mask was slipping, sweat beading at his hairline. The board voted unanimously. Mark was out, fired and escorted from the building he once ruled. But as the doors closed behind him, he turned and smirked, eyes full of a promise. This isn't the last you'll hear from me. A chill settled in my bones. Mark might be gone, but his war was only just beginning. Mark's physical presence was gone, but his shadow stretched long and dark across every department. The week after his firing, I learned just how deep his claws had sunk into the company. Financial discrepancies surfaced, suspicious contracts, shell vendors, invoices for work never done. It was a mess, and I realized I wasn't just fighting for my own vindication. I was fighting for the survival of everyone who still believed in this place. Staff morale was shaken. Every day, someone new came to my door, anxious about their future. Was Mark really that bad? Will you lay us off? Can we trust you? I tried to answer honestly, to rebuild trust brick by brick, but each conversation reminded me of the damage Mark had left behind. Late one night, Priya called me down to IT. You need to see this, she said, her voice tight. In the server logs, she'd found evidence of a backdoor Mark had installed months before I returned. An open door for sabotage, leaks, or worse. He was still watching us, manipulating from a distance. I felt the old humiliation flicker, but this time I was ready. We worked through the night, patching vulnerabilities, resetting passwords, locking every virtual window. I sent a message to the staff. We've survived worse. No more secrets. If you know something, now's the time. Tips started pouring in. Anonymous confessions, hidden alliances, people who'd seen too much and said nothing out of fear. I started to see who I could truly trust. But then, an anonymous email landed in my inbox. A threat. You think you're safe now? Check tomorrow's headlines. My stomach dropped. Mark wasn't finished. He'd taken his war to the public. The next morning, my face was all over the news, accused of embezzlement, incompetence, even harassment. The court of public opinion was about to judge me before I could even defend myself. The media storm hit like a tidal wave. Overnight, I went from anonymous executive to the company's embattled face on every news feed. Headlines screamed my name alongside words like embezzlement and toxic leadership. The stories twisted the truth, peppered with quotes from anonymous sources who clearly parroted Mark's venom. Even some former colleagues went on record, voices full of old grudges and self-preservation. I barely slept, glued to my phone, watching my reputation unravel again. Shareholders called, panicked. Clients threatened to pull contracts. My board wavered, bombarded with messages demanding my resignation. Every meeting felt like walking through fire. But I refused to hide. I called a town hall, streamed to every corner of the company, and posted publicly. I looked straight into the camera, voice shaking but clear. I know you've heard terrible things about me. Most are lies spread by someone who wanted to see me fail. I won't ask for your trust. I'll earn it. I presented the evidence. Mark's sabotage, the planted rumors, the server backdoor, the fake invoices. I named names, but spared the truly innocent. I told the story of what it felt like to be betrayed and why I came back, to prove that justice matters, even when it's messy. Some believed me instantly, their faces lighting up with hope. Others stayed skeptical, waiting for the next scandal to break. But I saw, for the first time, the staff rallying behind me. Priya's steady gaze, a young intern's supportive message, the quiet thanks from colleagues who'd kept their heads down for too long. Still, the outside world was vicious. Paparazzi outside my building. Anonymous threats to my inbox. Mark's smear campaign was working, at least for now. That night, as I locked up my office, I found a note slipped under the door. Meet me on the roof at midnight. I have proof that can save you. Come alone. I hesitated, every instinct screaming it was a trap. But I had nothing left to lose. I climbed the stairwell, each echoing step a countdown to something I couldn't predict. The city sprawled beneath me, glowing with 1,000 indifferent lights. The rooftop wind whipped at my jacket, raising goosebumps along my arms. I half expected Mark himself to step out of the shadows, but instead, I found Priya waiting, her silhouette outlined by the glow of her phone. She looked nervous, glancing over her shoulder before she spoke. I had to do this in person. The board is bugged. Mark's people are everywhere. But I have proof. She handed me a flash drive, her hand trembling. This is everything. The emails, the transactions, the instructions from Mark. He was paying people to leak stories, to sabotage you from inside. I couldn't risk sending it electronically. Relief mixed with disbelief. Priya, why are you helping me? You could lose everything if this backfires. She met my eyes, fierce. Because I believe you, and I'm done being afraid. We huddled in the shadow of the rooftop door, reviewing the files on her laptop. There it was, a digital paper trail, contracts, shell accounts, even messages between Mark and 2 journalists feeding them stories. My anger flared, at Mark, at the system that protected men like him, and at myself for ever doubting my instincts. We planned our next move. Tomorrow, we go public. This time, with facts. And if the board still wants you out, at least the truth will finally have a voice. Before we parted, Priya grabbed my arm. You're not alone anymore. No matter what happens. I descended the stairs as dawn broke, hope burning through exhaustion. But as I reached my office, my phone buzzed with a new message. Too late. Your past is about to ruin you, forever. I stared at the screen, realizing Mark's next attack wasn't just against my present, but everything I'd tried to leave behind. That day felt like walking through a minefield. Every time my phone buzzed, I flinched, expecting the worst. My inbox was full of press inquiries, board meeting requests, and messages from people I barely remembered, some offering support, others just hungry for gossip. At noon, Mark's threat materialized. An anonymous account leaked personal details about my past to the press, my family's financial struggles growing up, an old bankruptcy, even therapy records from years ago. It was a smear campaign designed to make me look unstable, untrustworthy, a narrative Mark knew would stick. The board called an emergency meeting. I walked in, spine stiff with adrenaline. Your leadership is under question, the chairman said, sliding a printed dossier across the table. My childhood poverty, a college mistake, even private counseling notes were on full display. I felt naked, exposed. anger and shame warring inside me. But Priya was there, calm and determined. "This is character assassination," she said. "And we have proof Mark orchestrated it all." We presented the flash drive, emails, payment trails, names of journalists bribed, employees bought. I spoke plainly. I won't apologize for surviving hardship or seeking help. I'm not ashamed of who I was, or what I overcame to stand here now. But I will fight for the truth. The room fell silent. Some faces softened, some hardened, but I saw respect flicker where there had been doubt. When the meeting ended, the board delayed their decision. As I left, Priya squeezed my hand. "You did it. They finally saw you, not just your scars." But in the elevator, I checked my phone, another message. "You think you've won? I know who your allies are. I know where they live. Back down, or someone else will pay." My blood ran cold. Mark wasn't just targeting me now. He was threatening everyone I cared about. I couldn't protect everyone at once. Mark's latest threat was a cold reminder. My war wasn't just professional anymore. It was personal. That night, I barely slept, checking in with Priya, warning my few trusted friends. I called my parents, using old code words we'd had for emergencies, urging them to lay low. I hated dragging them into this, hated that my fight for justice had made them targets. The next day at work, a patrol car idled outside the building. Priya stuck close, wary but resolute. She'd been getting odd calls, hang-ups, vague threats. Another loyal manager found her car keyed, her mailbox full of poison pen letters. The intimidation campaign was growing bolder. I briefed the staff. "If anyone feels unsafe, come to me. We're a team. Mark wants us divided, terrified." I refused to let him win that way. There were murmurs of agreement, but fear hung in the air. Even I struggled to sound convincing. The board's investigation dragged on. Every day, I sent them more evidence, more voices from inside the company who'd finally found the courage to speak. Each act of solidarity was a small victory, but Mark's shadow stretched long. Someone hacked my email, sending slander to our biggest client. Projects stalled as people watched their backs instead of doing their jobs. One night, my apartment door rattled, someone trying the lock. I called the police, hands shaking, but they found nothing by the time they arrived. Just a note under the mat. "You can't hide forever." Fear threatened to crush me, but Priya's message kept me going. "Tomorrow we go public with everything. Together." The next morning, we scheduled a press conference. Priya and I would stand side by side, expose every dirty secret Mark had weaponized. But as we prepared, news broke. Mark had been arrested for corporate espionage, caught by federal agents trying to sell confidential company data to a competitor. For a split second, hope blazed. But the story wasn't over. Because now, with Mark behind bars, the company was more vulnerable than ever, and someone else, hidden in the chaos, was waiting to strike. Mark's arrest made national news. Photos of him in cuffs, headlines about betrayal and white-collar crime. I watched it unfold from my office, relief mixing with dread. His face was everywhere, but so were the words turmoil and instability. Stock prices dipped. The board panicked, meetings stretching late into the night. Clients and competitors circled like vultures, sensing weakness. Inside the company, chaos erupted. Old Mark loyalists jockeyed for power, some trying to sabotage from within, others desperate to save their own jobs. My inbox overflowed with offers, threats, and rumors. "Now's your chance," Priya whispered, determination in her eyes. "You need to prove you're more than just the anti-Mark. You need to lead." We moved quickly. Priya and I called a staff assembly. I spoke with raw honesty. We can't erase the damage overnight. But if we pull together, we can rebuild, stronger, cleaner, safer. I outlined new policies for transparency, whistleblower protection, and independent audits. The room was tense, but I saw a spark of hope return. But the threats weren't gone. The same night, an anonymous tip warned me. Mark was only the beginning. There are others in the shadows. Watch your board. Priya worked overtime, combing through contracts, tracking suspicious activity. We found evidence of another executive quietly funneling company secrets out, someone who'd stayed hidden behind Mark's chaos. I confronted him in a tense, closed-door meeting, voice shaking but steady. "I know what you've been doing. The FBI does too." He smirked. "You think you've won? This company eats the weak." I refused to back down. "Maybe, but not anymore." He resigned that night, but not before leaving one last poisoned email, another attempt to undermine my reputation. The fallout was swift, but I weathered it, thanks to the loyalty of those who'd finally started to believe in me. Priya hugged me in the quiet after the storm. This was never just about Mark, was it? I shook my head. No, it's about all of us. And I'm not done fighting. But as we turned out the lights, my phone buzzed one last time that night. You're running out of allies. Better watch your back. The next few weeks felt like living under siege. Every victory was met with a new challenge. Anonymous threats, boardroom drama, rumors that flared up and vanished just as fast. My sleep was patchy, my nerves frayed, but I refused to step back. This company was finally becoming what it should have been: transparent, ethical, human. Priya and I doubled down on reforms. We brought in an outside auditor, started anonymous surveys for staff, and created a committee for ethics and transparency. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Some old guard quit rather than adapt, but more stayed, hungry for a better workplace. Every time a resignation letter landed on my desk, I wondered if it would be the last dagger, or the final sign we were breaking free. One late evening, as I worked through another pile of reports, an envelope slid under my door. No stamp, no name. Inside was a single sheet of paper. This is your last chance. Step down, or the next secret that leaks will ruin more than your career. I stared at it, fury simmering. I was tired of being threatened, tired of fear dictating every move. The next morning, I called another all-hands meeting. I shared everything: the threats, the resistance, the changes we were making. If anyone here is working against us, you have a choice. Come forward or leave now. But this is the last day the past gets to control our future. Afterward, a few more resigned. But most applauded, some even crying with relief. That night, I met Priya on the rooftop again, city lights flickering beneath us. She smiled, a little sadly. You've done it. But are you okay? I hesitated. No. But for the first time, I believe we actually have a chance. Then my phone buzzed, a news alert. Mark's trial date was set. The headlines called me the executive who refused to break. But the next message chilled me. See you at the trial. The truth always comes out, one way or another. The courthouse steps were a frenzy of cameras, reporters shouting my name as I walked inside. The trial had become a spectacle. Mark's crimes front-page news, my leadership under a microscope. I wore a simple suit, head held high, rehearsing every answer in my mind, every truth I'd fought so hard to protect. Inside, I took the witness stand. The prosecutor asked about the sabotage, the threats, the years of rebuilding. I spoke slowly, honestly, making sure the jury saw not just my scars, but my resolve. Mark's lawyer tried to rattle me, dredging up every mistake I'd made, painting me as vengeful and unstable. For a moment, doubt flickered, but I didn't flinch. I didn't come back for revenge, I said, voice steady. I came back for the people who deserved better, for the truth. Mark's turn came. Shackled, pale, and defiant, he spun his own story, a tale of loyalty betrayed, an empire stolen. But his evidence was thin, his charm worn raw. The jury saw through him. Still, as our eyes met, I recognized the dangerous pride in his stare. Even from the defendant's table, he wanted to win. Outside, I saw Priya waiting. She hugged me tight, whispering, "You did it. No matter what happens now, you took your power back." But there was no relief, only a strange exhaustion. Each day in court brought more secrets to light, fraudulent accounts, more allies Mark had corrupted, even a plot to sell off company assets at a loss just to spite me. The press spun every detail, but public opinion slowly shifted in my favor. People began to see the bigger story, not just my comeback, but the cost of letting one man's ego control hundreds of lives. One night, after another draining day on the stand, I found an envelope taped to my apartment door. Inside was a photo of my family, my parents, my childhood home, my old school. A message scrawled in red ink. One last warning. Walk away. For the first time, fear nearly overwhelmed me. But I wasn't alone anymore. And tomorrow, I would take the stand again. The next morning, I stood in the courthouse hallway, my hands cold and clammy despite the summer heat. Priya squeezed my shoulder. "He's desperate," she whispered. "He knows he's lost." I nodded, but the photo and the threat from last night gnawed at me. My family was under police watch, but the paranoia was real. I'd spent years being careful, but Mark had always known how to push me right to the edge. Back in court, the prosecutor called me again, this time for cross-examination. Mark's attorney circled like a shark. Isn't it true you're just as ruthless as my client? Didn't you come back to ruin him, no matter the cost? I met her stare, forcing myself to breathe. I came back to save the company. I didn't ruin Mark. He ruined himself. She tried to twist my words, but I stayed calm, telling the jury everything. The sabotage, the threats, the culture of fear that had nearly destroyed us all. I saw nods, even sympathy, on the faces in the box. Then, in a last-ditch move, Mark's attorney brought out the photo from my apartment, an obvious intimidation tactic. Isn't it true you're willing to use any leverage, even family, to get what you want? I refused to look away. My family is being threatened because I spoke the truth. I won't apologize for standing up to bullies, even if it puts me at risk. Gasps echoed in the gallery. The judge glared at the defense. Mark's mask finally cracked. For the first time, I saw him as he really was, small, angry, and afraid. When court adjourned, Priya hugged me, tears in her eyes. It's almost over, she whispered. But outside, a reporter caught me as I stepped onto the sidewalk. If you win, what's next? I thought about it. The company, the scars, the people who'd believed in me. If I win, I said quietly, we all get to start again. But as I turned away, a familiar number lit up my phone. This isn't over. Not until the verdict. The city felt breathless on verdict day. Sunlight glared off the courthouse steps, where reporters clustered in anticipation, waiting to pounce. My pulse hammered as I walked inside. Every echo off the marble walls felt like the tick of a countdown clock. I found Priya in the hall, her eyes shining with a mixture of hope and exhaustion. No matter what happens, she whispered, you didn't let him break you. We sat side by side as the jury filed in, the courtroom thick with tension. I caught a glimpse of Mark, hollow-eyed, pale, a far cry from the untouchable boss he once was. Still, his gaze met mine, defiant to the end. The foreman stood. On all counts of corporate sabotage, intimidation, and fraud, we find the defendant guilty. Gasps, a burst of camera shutters, the judge's gavel pounding for order. Mark stared straight ahead, refusing to show a flicker of emotion. I felt the air leave my lungs, a years-long weight lifted, but replaced with something quieter, heavier. Relief, grief, the ache of everything lost. Outside, reporters swarmed. I gave a single statement. This company deserves honesty. We all do. Today wasn't about revenge, it was about ending a cycle. Back inside, I gathered my things, moving through a blur of handshakes and tearful thank yous. Priya pressed a letter into my hand. From the staff, she said, smiling through her tears. They believe in you. For the first time, they believe in this place again. That night, I walked the city alone, letting the world settle around me. I replayed every betrayal, every moment I nearly quit, every friend I'd gained and lost. I thought of Mark, not the villain, but the man I once trusted, and what power had done to both of us. My phone buzzed with one last message from an unknown number. New beginnings cost everything. Are you ready? I looked up at the skyline, and for the first time in years, I felt free. In the weeks after the verdict, the company slowly breathed again. Staff meetings felt lighter. Laughter began to echo down halls that once rang with fear. I met with every department, promising not perfection but honesty. Priya became my right hand officially, a partner in rebuilding, not just survival. There were long days and sleepless nights, cleaning up the mess Mark left behind. We settled lawsuits, reached out to clients who'd almost walked away, and created new policies so no single person could ever wield unchecked power again. Some employees moved on, unable to let go of the past, but most stayed, eager for a place where their voices mattered. I met with the board, this time not to defend myself, but to outline my vision for the future. I was honest about my mistakes, about the scars left behind. This isn't just a comeback story, I told them. It's a second chance for all of us. Let's build something we can be proud of. When the press asked about Mark, I refused to gloat. Justice was done. Now it's time to move forward. At home, I finally allowed myself to rest. I took my parents out for dinner, thanked them for their faith when the world turned on me. I sent Priya flowers and a card that simply said, "We did it. Together." One Friday evening, as the sun set over the city, I stood by my office window, and watched the lights come on across the skyline. I thought about everyone who'd helped, everyone who'd doubted, even everyone who'd tried to stop me. I felt peace. Not the peace of forgetting, but the peace of surviving. This wasn't the ending I'd imagined, but it was the one I'd earned. Tomorrow, we'd get back to work. Tomorrow, we'd start again.